So a week ago, I did a video on why I think that the new car dealers are in trouble and what signs that I'm seeing to show that these new car dealers are hurting right now. I want to switch to a different part of the market right now. What I want to do is focus on smaller used car dealers like myself, and I want to do a video on why I think that it's going to be a very hard run for us the end of this year and all of next year, and also tell you why I think a lot of us are going to go out of business. So that's the video I want to cover today, but if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'll bring you market updates every week. I also talk to you about buying, selling, repairing used vehicles, and I'm trying to save you a lot of money, but today's going to be more of a market update video, so let's get into it. So all these reasons that I'm going to give you why these smaller used car dealers are in trouble is all rooting from one thing, and that's inventory problems. So I just want to rewind the clock just a little bit. Pre-pandemic, a couple years ago, my dealership, we're not a large dealership, but we turn cars really fast. We were selling 90 to 100 cars every month, and I was able to buy enough cars from about 3 different auctions to make that work. Fast forward to right now, we only do 60 to 70 cars a month, and I'm having to look at 7 auctions a week to even keep up with what my sales staff is able to sell. So I want to show you this video you see right here. This is an auction lot that pre-pandemic was always full every week of cars, and this is 2 hours before they were about to run the auction. So you can see that it's almost half empty. The problem is we're just not getting trade-ins from these new car dealers because they're not selling anything. And that's the biggest problem that we're having with inventory right now, is because the new car inventory, is the demand is so low right now that they're not selling any cars. I talked to you about that in that video from last week. They're not selling any cars right now, so that means we're not getting any of their trade-ins. So a dealer that might have brought 30, 40 trade-ins every week to this particular auction, now they're only bringing 5, 10 because their volume is so far down that they're not able to provide the trade-ins. And if there is a good trade-in that they get in, they're just keeping it themselves. So I buy lower end cars, so the stuff that I buy, they don't want to keep anyway. So even if they get a nice car that's got 200,000 miles on it, 160,000 miles on it, somewhere around there, we're still selling that pop-up at auction, but we're not seeing any of those because they're just cheaper end used cars. The monthly payments on a new car right now are the highest they've ever been. So why, if you have a paid off, good used car, cheap used car, would you trade it in right now? You wouldn't. So these people are keeping these cars, and that's what's hurting the inventory for us used car dealers. So again, a couple years ago, when I would be able to run 3 auctions and be able to get all the cars that we need, when I would go to an auction, I would have 20 or 30 that I would want to bid on my list to look at when they were coming through the lanes. Now I'm lucky to have 6 or 7. So the quality and the quantity is just down so far. And what that creates too is kind of a bottleneck in the lower end of used cars, because all the guys that are buying the same kind of stuff that I am, we now have fewer cars that we're fighting for, which is driving the price up. And I'll talk about that a little bit later about pricing. But if you have the same amount of dealers, say there's 10 dealers that buy cheaper stuff at this small auction, but instead of having 30 cars to look at, we now have 5 cars to look at, that's going to drive the price up on those 5 cars. So that's one of the big reasons why you're seeing, even though the demand's down, the prices are still elevated, is because us dealers, we're fighting for all the same cars, and there are fewer of them to fight for. So the second reason why we are in big time trouble is that quality is down. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but if people have a good car right now, they're not trading it in because they don't want to pay the monthly payments that are going to come with a new car. The new cars are elevated in price still. Prices are coming down, yes, but they're still higher than they were 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. So there's no reason for you to trade in your good 2005 Toyota Camry with 200,000 miles. If it's running good, it's paid off, to get in a new Toyota Camry and have a $600-700 monthly payment. So the next reason is, and I touched about on this a little bit earlier, is that prices are up. Now I know you don't have to put in the comments, I know prices are coming down. I see that, I know that, but they are still so far away from where they were pre-pandemic that it's still costing too much for us to buy them wholesale to be able to sell them cheap enough for the demand that's just not there. So when I buy a car, and I put it out for sale. It goes online, all these different mediums or whatever. If it's a good price car, then it will immediately get sold. Somebody will come and buy it. But it's getting few and far between these cars that we can buy and still make money on and price them cheap enough to be able to sell them quickly. So what ends up happening is that we end up keeping our cars longer. The turn rate takes longer because there's less customers out there willing to pay the prices that are a little bit higher, and we have to have our prices a little bit higher because of what we're paying for them on a wholesale level. So I'm just going to pause the video real quick. Just want to tell you this: if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And two, I give you a lot of these updates every week, so if you're still watching now, it's clear that you like this kind of content. I do this. I do updates on what I'm paying for cars, what I'm selling them for. But if you like this content, please subscribe to the channel. So back to the problem with pricing. The thing is that it's getting to a point now that consumers almost can't even pay what we're having to pay wholesale for these cars. So if there's a car that I'm buying for, let's give an example, $3,000, we're quickly finding out that some of these cars that we're overpaying for, as soon as we put them out, we might put them out for 2 weeks and not get anybody to look at them. So that $3,000 car I paid for at auction, we put it out for $4,000, and we don't even get a message on it. We don't get a phone call, we don't get a text, we don't get a test drive. So what we have to do after 2 weeks, and what I do, because I want to move my cars quick, is I'll go ahead and do a $500 cut. And what we're finding is that, okay, even at that $3,500 level, we're only making $500 on it, that we're still not getting any hits on it. So then 2 weeks later, my sales manager comes to me and he's like, look, we haven't even got one lead on this car, and we're only making $500 on it. So we get to the point we say, okay, well, it's apparent that the market has spoken and they don't want this car. So we drop it down to $3,000. Usually 95% of the time we have those cars, we can get out of them for what we put in them. But if we have repair bills on top of that, and not even to talk about these guys who use floor plans, if they have interest payments going on, they can't do this because once they get a loss on the car, they're losing even more money than I am because they have their interest that they have to pay on top of that. So they are more reluctant to cut a car down to what they have in it, because obviously it's not really what they have in it, because they're paying interest on top of whatever they paid for the car. So we're getting to that point where the market is telling us, used car dealers, that we're paying too much for these cars. We need to lower our prices or we're not going to sell them. I'm seeing that now, and we price our cars very cheap, and we're seeing it. So I can't even imagine what some of these other dealers are going through that try to make $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 on their car. I don't see how they're selling it right now, because people just can't afford to pay even that much what we're paying over wholesale prices. If I'm listing these cars and I can't even get wholesale prices on some of these cars that I'm trying to sell. So this last reason is a biggie, and I think this is the reason that's going to knock a bunch of used car dealers out of the market, especially those that are leveraged up. Now, I talk about floor plans a lot. Check out some of my other videos. I'm not going to go over what a floor plan is, but I'll basically say it's like a credit card that dealers swipe to buy cars. I don't do this. I pay cash for all my cars. I was lucky enough to organically grow my business without any debt. But a lot of dealers, most dealers I would say, are on a floor plan whether they have to borrow money to buy their inventory. So the problem right now is that interest rates are up so high, and these floor plan companies have to move with the current interest rate. So right now, demand is down, supply is down. They're having to pay more for their inventory. It's having to sit longer, and as it sits longer, they accrue more interest. And also, the prices of used vehicles are coming down. So they are behind the curve on pricing their vehicles because, one, they pay too much for it, and then a couple weeks go by, the prices of the vehicles go down, so they have to lower the price. But as they're lowering their price to sell it, the amount of money that they're putting into the car is going up. So they're going to get to a point, especially if they're stubborn, especially if they're over leveraged, where they're going to be upside down in every car on their lot. And it does not take much to bankrupt one of these companies if they don't have money to begin with. If they've got 70, 80 cars on their lot and they have floor planned every one of them, and 90% of them are underwater after a month that they've had it because the prices are dropping so quickly, then they're going to have to come up with interest payments every month, and this is money they already don't have. That's because they have to borrow it. So I think December is going to be a big telling month for used car dealers. January is going to be a big telling month for used car dealers, because those are the two worst selling months for us. So I'm expecting to see a lot of prices go down very significantly in those 2 months, because I think a lot of these over-leveraged dealers, they're going to be just capped out on what they can borrow, so they're not going to be able to buy anything. So I expect prices to come down, but we have something else that's really, really bad for inventory that's coming up on the horizon, and that is tax time. So end of February, this happens. I'm going to try to make this quick. I might make another video about this later. But what happens at the end of February is that people get their tax refund checks, and a lot of them use that as a savings account, and they will rush to dealers and they will buy cars with this. We do it every year. We try to, I usually keep, right now during the pandemic, 70 to 80 cars on my lot. At tax time, I hope to have 150 plus. And what will happen in 10 days, 15 days, we'll sell every one of them. And what most used car dealers will do, they won't prepare for it, and they'll sell all 10, all 20 cars that they have on a lot, and they're like, I don't know what happened, but it happens every year. They're stupid. But they rush to the auction and they'll pay whatever it costs. So there's going to be this massive pop in prices. It happens every year. It's going to be even worse this year because the inventory is so far down. But in March, the used car prices are going to spike. And when we sell our cars, we basically go on vacation from buying cars for about a month and a half, because I know prices are going to spike so hard. And then they drop because all these guys get over leveraged again, and then they can't sell anything because all the money dries up. But all that to say that December, January is going to separate a lot of these good dealers that are prepared and the bad dealers that need to pay these interest payments that they can't afford. And then they're going to end up selling everything in February, in March, and then they're going to rush back to the auction and just start the whole train over again. So I'm seeing something really bad happening in the summer of next year. I think it's going to be a crushing time for used car prices. I think a lot of used car dealers are going to go out of business. And if there are any used car dealers out there listening, I know a lot of you guys listen and your subscribers, get prepared for tax time before it happens. If you're over leveraged right now, get yourself under leveraged, because you're going to need that money to load up before tax time. And then when the tax checks get here, sell all your cars. If you don't sell them in the first couple of days when you start seeing money, mark them down so you do sell them. And then take a few weeks off from buying cars, because prices are going to spike. You know it's going to happen. It happens every year. So that's just my public service announcement for the dealers out there. So I think I've said all I want to say. This video is way too long, and I'm sorry. But if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave me a comment. Let me know what you want to see next, and I just hope you have a great rest of your day.